Hello out there, Foxes fans, and welcome back to another edition of the U.S. Foxes podcast, coming to you live from various time zones around the U.S. I, as always, am your host, Matt Folks, joined by my entire full team of co-hosts this evening, starting with Mr. Jason Becker in New York City. We can see him through the smoke. You hanging in? You hanging in there, buddy?
I have to say, New York City right now is a paradise for anyone who wanted to see the world through our colored badge on the home shirt this season. The whole city looks like the home shirt, the badge on the home shirt this year, and smells like I guess all of Brendan Rodgers' excuses.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's very appropriate. Every photo that I've seen, first of all, it's awful. It's almost terrifying, seeing stuff like that. Like it just has this ghastly, feel to every photo. But yeah, gold tint, definitely like the badge. That's perfect. Also joining us down in Houston, Texas. I always do Chris first, so I'm gonna do it in reverse. Down in Houston, Texas, Mr. Jim Harris, the Texas Fox himself. What's up, bud? How are you?
I'm doing well. Thankfully, the smoke's not reached down here yet, so I'm glad Jason's doing well, and he's going to be looking through this rose-tinted prism for this spectacular season that we just experienced, and as we look back. But yeah, all good down here. Thanks.
I was wondering if this was if it was one of your famous briskets that was causing this, and then just wafted all the way up to New York.
Just meat smoke. Yeah. Luckily, no. The only smoke we have going on here in wonderful San Diego is people enjoying their various vitamins. So it's all self-inflicted smoke here. Not right, Chris. Up in Del Mar, California. About people ask me how far is Del Mar from where I am in Ocean Beach and where Chris used to be when we did this podcast live. It's about no traffic. You're looking at what, 20 minutes?
I'd say 20 minutes, mate. Yeah. No, I'm doing all right, mate. Yeah, I'd say the other smoke might have been the fume that was coming out of my ears over the past 2 weeks after watching that and thinking about the season. But yeah, crazy times all over the world. I mean, this is what happens. Leicester gets relegated and all hell breaks loose all over the world. But no, it's great to see you boys. And yeah, hopefully we can use today as a bit of a laugh and a therapy session to kind of deal with what happened and kind of look forward and look back on the season.
Yeah, the Canada Foxes took it really hard apparently and just started lighting shit on fire. So they really cooked their relegation hard apparently. Yeah, guys, unless you've been living under a rock, which I mean at this point that'd be pretty cool because you wouldn't have heard the news, but we have gone down. Once again, the Yo-Yo Club that we are is back. It's reared its ugly head, unfortunately, but yes, after a good result as far as the team put in, they suddenly decided to play. We get the win, but useless Bournemouth. Fuck those guys. I mean, were they even trying to get the ball forward? Because I know after we were watching San Diego, and it really, after we scored the first goal, I was pretty much watching the Bournemouth match because it did look to me at least like, despite any hopes we might have had going in, that Bournemouth, especially when I think Jason, you're the one that texted me that they had their backup keeper playing. I was like, oh boy, here we go. What were I guess your thoughts on that whole situation, Jason?
Yeah, but then I saw after that last time he did play against Everton, Bournemouth won 3-0. But I kind of made up my mind going into the day that I was going to try not to watch that Everton Bournemouth game if I could help it, because I just felt like it's hard enough, right, to will Leicester City Football Club this year to score a goal, win a game, and do what they have to do. And it's I have to tell you, like, as bad as that was this year, it's way worse. Like, doing that for some side who doesn't give two shits about you. Like, it's not fun. So I probably watched about like 2-3 minutes of that game and realized it was just like making everything worse for me. So I just went back to arguing.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm a glutton for punishment because you did the right move. I had to watch fucking Pickford falling all over the place and acting hurt, and I didn't know I could hate that guy more, Chris, and sure enough, I did.
Well, the thing that got me the most was you had to watch two teams that were absolute dog shit to be like, and we lost. We went down over an Everton side that were just. It was just so they were so bad. Like we've bemoaned ourselves all seeing how bad we are, but when you watch some of those other teams down there, it kind of puts it into perspective, like how trash it is at the bottom of the league. And yeah, mate, I'm with you. I'm with Jason. We kind of flicked over a little bit to watch some of the Bournemouth game, but ultimately, it was more just kind of focus on Leicester and hope the cards would fall into the place. I mean, there is that moment, I don't know, 95th minute when he puts it straight at Pickford. You're kind of thinking, is that it? Like, would any other team, would it have gone to the side or would it have bounced off Pickford and fell at the centre forward's feet? But Leicester City, no, just go straight at him. And yeah, we're down, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean,
so Chris and I did not watch the game together. Chris was much smarter and headed down south of the border. Were you just watching in some beautiful resort?
we were watching it in Mexico City, actually.
Oh,
so we were in Mexico City at that point. So before, I was probably the saddest person that's ever visited the Frida Kahlo. Well, we went to the Frida Kahlo Museum, the Blue House, after the game, and I was just moping around there, like. So that didn't really help anything because it's an amazing place to go and encourage people if they're ever down there to check it out. But yeah, that didn't help my mood at all. And then, but the only good thing, I suppose, boys, is that I got to drink my body weight in tequila and mezcal and eat my body weight in incredible Mexican street food for 3 days. So there was a silver lining on my end, but Matt, I can't imagine at the Bluefoot with like just all the other Premier League fans what that was quite like.
It ranged all over the place because they had a whole event with a DJ. For those you don't know, they do a pretty big here. There's a big Premier League. There's a pretty good representation for most teams here as far as Premier League fans in San Diego, and they all pretty much showed up for the most part. And yeah, depending on who the fan base was, it varied from laughing at us to condolences. So shout out to those people that weren't assholes, total assholes. But yeah, we missed you definitely. We had a great showing. We had about 25 of us there. And it was sad for sure. It was also, tough watching people go through relegation for the first time, that have joined the team fandom here more recently. That almost was even harder to watch for, some of our faithful Foxes here in San Diego, but, a sad day, but we turned it into something great. I was so drunk. I had an epic hangover the next day. It's been a long time. Probably when I was in New York City celebrating with you, Jason, was the last time I was that hungover.
Hey Matt, before we go on, we should probably shout out our fellow Fox Kim, who may have had possibly the worst 48 hours.
Yeah, tell those people about
Kim,
that.
God bless her. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. A San Diego Fox, was the original kind of person that catalyzed our amazing group. And she is both a Leicester City and Borussia Dortmund fan. Basically, she traced her family history back and she found out that her family were from close to Dortmund. So yeah, she went down Saturday, all excited to see potentially her team win the Bundesliga. That didn't happen. She went back to the Blue on Sunday. Saw other team get relegated. So God bless you, Kim. We love you.
We love you.
We love you. 48 hours. That is.
It's yeah, it was tough. The only I guess the only thing that hopefully makes her feel a little bit better, the announcement today that our San Diego loyal here are playing a friendly against Dortmund this summer, so she'll get to see her two of her favorite teams play each other. That'll be a fun event. But yeah, shout out Kim. But Bluefoot was fun. We miss you, like I said. But yeah, it was definitely a sad day. But I honestly feel like a weight has kind of been lifted, because it was almost like I had resigned myself to us going down, and then we had this fucking hope that was suddenly thrust upon us, and then it was like, okay, they pulled the blanket off again. Jim, was your game day spent special at all, or do you guys just sit around the house watch?
We had about 10 to 12 people over. It was a long weekend, of course, so we were hosting. We had 6 friends from out of town staying, and so they tried to be jolly and sympathize, and I think in that point it's the worst thing that anyone can possibly say to you. It's just to kind of, even though they saw like the score line, and I was like you guys, I didn't watch the game. I just had the TV on, and I thought, okay, at least I can watch us win. And I kind of mini went through some of what the fans in the stadium were going through with some of these false hope cheers of, oh, have Everton scored? And I couldn't believe how many like rumors on the last day in this modern day and age were going around that, Bournemouth had scored. And it was, so I kind of had some of the ups and downs that would have been experienced, and then had the sort of friends walking in who know nothing about the game going, oh, you're winning. That's what you needed to do, right? I'm like,
oh yeah, that was lovely.
We needed to win, but also something else had to happen. And just explaining sort of what this meant. And it was, to people who don't follow football, like that it was kind of coming down to sort of like, hey, this is like a playoff final day. This is like final day of the, regular season to make or break your season. So it was lovely to see them, and I didn't feel very social for probably a couple of hours, which, but then I kind of got out my funk, and we all went and ate dim sum and had a great day in the end, and celebrated, and had some good times where, people helped me like get through it. And it was nice to actually kind of talk to people who didn't want to talk about a game, in a way, because otherwise I'd probably be wallowing still to this very moment. And like same as you, lots of friends who are following teams from other clubs around, that I work with, or, my friends in Houston or work have been very, very kind, actually. And I think it's nice to see that we had a place that was special for others as well. The great achievements we had, but it doesn't make it any sweeter, apart from potentially learning some new players, and maybe we'll have some exciting signings and so forth. And I know that's something we want to talk about later.
Definitely, man. It's like I said, I feel like we can now move forward. We played and towed the line for so long, and now we can accept where we are. And I've heard multiple people say that relegation was what needed to happen to kind of right the ship, that if we would have stayed up, it would have been basically bandaging, over a nasty wound, to just keep walking forward. So now that we are down and can't accept it, guys, there's all sorts of news going on. We've got players heading out. We've got players heading in. Some 14-year-old. I saw a goalkeeper from what club was that, Chris? Did you see?
Mansfield Town. Shout out Robbie Savage.
Robbie Savage, Mansfield Town. Yes, 14-year-old goalkeeper.
Macclesfield. Sorry, not Mansfield. Macclesfield, I think it was. Sorry,
Macclesfield. Okay, so yeah, guys. First off, players out that have taken off, and depending on who they are, they left some goodbye messages. There were some heartfelt goodbyes. Yuri Tielemans heads out. That's the first one. Let's start with him. A player that has created one of the most iconic moments in Leicester City history, and pretty much pissed that goodwill away, depending on who you talk to, with refusing to sign contracts, etc., etc. And then we don't sell him, and now he's leaving on a free. So, Jason, starting with you, Yuri. Did you get a chance to see his goodbye message?
Well, I saw that, thing that he had like some PR firm put together probably weeks and months before. So I saw that. I just like didn't move me at all. But it was, I guess it was nice. That's, whoever did that, whatever intern put that together, I guess. Good job.
Yeah, great work.
But Yuri, he's to be honest, he just wasn't. He scored a couple of bangers this year and just wasn't good. Just didn't look good. Just couldn't run, couldn't tackle, couldn't do the things that you need a midfielder to do in the Premier League. And now, and his contract and the whole situation was really just badly managed. It was just like we were so desperate to, hang on to a significant other who was like already, moved on from you, right? And doing whatever you can. Oh, baby, please stay. I'll do this for you. I'll do that. Propose trying to get a dog or something to save the relationship.
Yes, yeah.
I'll do the dishes.
Yeah.
And it was clear he was never staying. And, just like, it just kind of summed up kind of everything that's kind of going wrong, the lack of planning, the lack of foresight. This is a club that no one wanted to believe was in trouble. None of the players on the staff and certainly the board didn't want to see it. And this is when you need some real leadership, especially when your captain is out. And so what do? We start like trying to give the armband to Yuri Tillemans all the time, and Brendan Rodgers, giving him hand jobs in the press if he had any chance he gets. And look what we got, out of it. Not much this year, but I will say I'll always have time for Yuri. And that's maybe a little bit of my frustration talking, but I think generally Yuri Tillemans is genuinely a good dude. He scored one of the greatest goals that has ever been scored in a Leicester City shirt, and gave us one of the greatest memories that any football fan could have. And that means a lot, especially when it happened, after COVID, and just like how cathartic and amazing that was. And for a lot of us, it was the first chance that a lot of us were able to get together. It was a shame that only such a few amount of people were allowed into the ground, but we actually really, got together and had a big group together, and it felt amazing. We finally got our white whale, right? We never thought about winning the Premier League. We always thought about winning that FA Cup. And Yuri Tillemans and Kasper Schmeichel won us that FA Cup with some incredible plays. And when I think about players that are leaving, I'll always kind of see Yuri and Ayoze together for two different reasons. One, certainly that awesome goal, right? Ayoze gets in the right place at the right time. Great block there of the clearance, even sweeter that it makes Chelsea fans cry and say it was a handball when it wasn't.
So much better. Yeah. So
it really just makes it that much sweeter. The ball, eventually gets to Yuri, and he scores one of the great goals that you'll ever see at Wembley. So for me, I'll always kind of have that moment that links them two together. And then I think a lot of folks may not be aware, but earlier in COVID, during, it was a really, really tough time in New York. People at the club were, trying to check in on some of us here in New York just to make sure everyone was okay, because, like thousands of people were dying. It was bad here in New York. We kind of took it on the chin big time. And Yuri Tillemans and Ayoze Perez both like immediately volunteer to give some time and do a Zoom for us here in New York. And I thought that was just really classy of them to do, and something that I'll always really appreciate, because I know that there are a lot of folks on that call whose spirits were really lifted by what they did. And both of them signed shirts, and there was a raffle, and they sent shirts to the raffle winners. And I was kind of making some comments about Yuri's play, etc. But it's something that I'll always be grateful for, that he and Ayoze both did that.
Definitely class. There's no doubt about that. And I think when you talk about Yuri, for me, I just kind of get upset at how it's ending.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's going to be something that we keep coming back to, something that is apparent, and we might not be done saying as far as who still might leave our club, guys. The same way, we talk about guys that just unceremoniously have to leave. I think about when he did his lap of honor or whatever you want to call it after the FA Cup win at Wembley, and people were saying that was his goodbye lap or whatever. Or the money, now, if we could have looked back, that was the time when we could have really, really sold and made the best. And you think no one would have ever had a bad word to say about Yuri Tielemans for the rest of his career in Leicester City, because that would be the postmark on it. Chris, your thoughts on Yuri?
Yeah, 100% echo what Jason said. I think one of the great things that I'll remember about Yuri is as a man, he really embraced Leicester. And I always remember going on social media and consistently hearing stories from people posting about how he had time to, whether it's to speak to people in the park, whether he met people when he was grocery shopping. He always had that approachability and humbleness, and was generally, I think, somebody that warmed to the city. So he was a great, great person. I mean, football wise, yeah, I think we'll never forget the FA Cup goal. Legacy wise, I think that's a bigger, more interesting question. If you say 5 years time from now, and we mention Yuri Tielemans, does he get put in the same bucket as Kasper Schmeichel, Jamie Vardy, etc., or is he one of those players that we kind of came through us, hopefully goes on to the next level, scored an important goal for us? I think, Matt, you're like this. I think my favorite Yuri moment was Arsenal away during COVID. The no-look pass down the wing. So was it Under who squared it to Vardy and we scored 1-0, the smash and grab with the Red Bull? I just remember that game, me and you sitting there watching that and then running around your apartment as poor Nige was going crazy. Like he was so frustrating as a player. For every bad thing he did, he'd go and do something that like no other Leicester player could ever go and do, whether it was a no-look pass, whether it was hitting it from 35 yards in the top corner against Wolves, against Chelsea, whatever it would be. Like, I think the lack of consistency was probably the biggest frustration about him. And so, no, I wish him well. It was interesting to hear Tanner on Monday night speak about that maybe some of the kind of rumors that were out there in terms of Big Six teams actually going after him may not have been as legitimate as kind of what we were led to believe last year, which I thought was quite interesting. But hopefully he can find that team where he can take that next step, play Champions League football. I think this year really highlighted though, like he's going to have to improve physical wise to take that next step. Like he got bullied off the ball this year. He just consistently looked like he was not there. And so best of luck to him. I think as a Leicester fan as well, the other thing I'll say is, look, we sometimes I think I'm the worst person for this. Like we spend 30 million on a player and we're consistently looking for excuses when they're performing bad, because that's a hell of a lot of money for Leicester City to spend on a player. And I think one of the things that we did as a fan base was at times, especially these last 2 years, maybe defend Yuri too much. And I think moving forward, if we are going to spend that money on the player, we should be confident as a fan base to be like, hey, you know what? This guy isn't cutting it. Like, we can go and spend 30 million, but it doesn't mean that every one of them is going to work out. So I'd say to Leicester fans as well, like, continue to just learn from this and be brave in those situations. And if he is playing crap, call him out. Like, let's not defend him now. Let's go out and just actually do what other fan bases do. And like 30 million isn't anything. But yeah, we'll miss him.
I think that's a good point about just the mentality around the club and how that needs to change, because we shouldn't be this we're historically a yo-yo club, but we shouldn't be that anymore, especially considering where we were. And that's part, I think that kind of mentality plays a big part in that, and kind of being, not wanting to ruffle too many feathers, right? And we have a lot of folks who are like that. And then speaking about like the Big Six moves not coming to fruition, look at who his agent has on his books. I mean, the guy's out of his depth. It looks like he's not organizing some big deal, and the bigger clubs all call this bluff.
Yeah, listen, we can do a whole episode this summer about how recruiting used to be our gold crown on our head, and now it's the toilet that we sit on. But that's a whole nother thing in itself. Jim, anything else that you want to add about Yuri before we move on this illustrious list?
I think the guys said it, like, really nice guy, sort of person that I think that's in a way what makes it even more disappointing this last season, and the way it kind of, he clearly didn't want to stay. We should have cashed in when we were on the high, but I think also the way we were, the truth, we were going up, we weren't going down at that point when we could have cashed in on him. And I think it's almost a bit of a red flag of where was the plan back then when we won the FA Cup, to build the team, to bring in continuity, to say, okay, we could sell Yuri Tielemans on a high from a cup final goal, from a performance where, he's got another year left on his contract after that. Let's get it out the door. But we didn't. We said, no, Brendan Rodgers and the team said, no, let's get the team together and stay in Europe and just try and play that same team. And I think that to me was, we talked a bit about this, the beginning of the end of sort of where was the planning, where was the continuity. It was almost like, holy shit, we won the FA Cup and now we're in Europe. Not, we just came fifth twice. We came eighth, won the FA Cup. We won the Premier League and not that long ago as well. Like, we were the team that was the most lauded, well-run club. And then it's sort of the wheels coming off. And I think Yuri is kind of the emblematic player that summarizes it for me. Stuck around, didn't, was part of the sleepwalk to relegation. He turned up, he didn't put it in the final season. He had his head turned. And I think that to me is when you talk about, will he be remembered as the great? He won't be up there with certainly Vardy, certainly with Schmeichel, not with Riyad Mahrez, who did more, kind of has stood out and has come back and said, hey, I love this club still. I don't want him to go down. Yeah, he didn't. When he left, it was a very sour pill. But I think we also saw, look where he's going and look what he's done since he's left. Whereas, now Yuri's linked with Villa. Okay, Villa now, people saying, well, that's a sideways step. No, it's not. Villa are in Europe. We're in the Championship. But where we were a year ago, we were ahead of Villa. And now look what's happened. And I think that's what Jason said and what Chris said. This is why he's not being picked up by the big clubs. He doesn't have the athleticism. Look at McAllister going to Liverpool. Look at what he does. Look at that sort of drive. That's what you need in a midfield. And then look at what Brighton are doing already about positioning to go and sign 2 or 3 players to fill that. Like, where are we? We have no clue. And so that's kind of my, Yuri will be a moments player, cup final goal, 15 years time, 20 years time, when we're all doing this podcast as old men or older men round that, we'll be like, well, remember that Yuri Tielemans goal in, the cup final? Yeah, that was great, wasn't it? All right, next, what do we talk about? So that to me is Yuri Tielemans.
Yeah. Yuri was such a weird thing for me too, as like a FIFA, I've talked on here before as a FIFA gamer. Yuri Tielemans, when you were doing a franchise mode, was always like one of the highest rated youngsters that you could sign. And his potential was like an A++. And then fast forward. So I would always sign him for my Leicester franchise mode. And then you fast forward like 6 years and the guy actually ends up signing for us. I'll always remember that part because that was pretty crazy.
And his beans on toast. That's the other memory.
And his what? Sorry.
His favorite meal being beans on toast.
Does anyone believe that?
I think he's the guy who was actually like, I freaking love beans on toast. Like, I love beans on toast.
He said that he liked living there over Monaco, and he does seem like that kind of personality.
Yeah, and that's what endeared him, Jason. And I think it's that kind of, we fell in love hard, as you said, and it really hard, and we thought he was the one, right? And now he got bored of the relationship, and he didn't do the thing that he should have done, which is I'm not in love with you. I'm walking away. It was, oh yeah, I still like you. I still like you. Still like you. Sorry, now it's just time for me to go. I got to move away to a different town. It's the summer romance in 4
It's
years.
reminiscent.
Right?
It's reminiscent of like when we all, remember when everybody got a flutter when Cambiaso and Ujoa were out jogging every day and everyone was loving in that. Or even when Brendan, would take his strolls around Bradgate, like all that stuff just is it makes you endeared to the player. But whereas I feel like if Yuri would have gotten the exit when he wanted it after the FA Cup, I just feel like all that stuff that you're saying, Jim, as far as like, him being upset or whatever, I just think it was so avoidable. And looking back, it was so unnecessary too. Jason, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was actually, that's what I was going to say. But
Okay.
and I think because of the timing and how they left, like I think that I'll still feel a little bit more of that. I don't know, that romance, so to speak, towards a Nujoa or a Cambiaso.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I feel like the analogy I have for Yuri is he worked his notice period like we would do, and here in the US that would be 2 weeks. Unfortunately for him it was a season, and he kind of showed he was turning up to work, punching his card right, but he was doing, I'll do the emails, I'll do the stuff that moves paper around, but I'm not going to go do that big project that you want me to do. I'm not going to put it in past 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
that to me was the attitude, and it was like he was our best worker, and he became our most average.
Yeah,
but he was overpaid. So anyway,
the only thing he didn't do was dye his hair blonde, like blonde Mahrez. If you remember, like the smile and the celebrations, like of Mahrez, like when we won the title, like just the happy little mouse, just ear to ear smiles, and then doesn't get his move. That summer of just pouting, and he comes back with that blonde hair, and even when he would score, it was just like this subdued smile. Like the same shit happened, with Yuri. So it sucks, but thank you for your service, sir. Let's move on.
Yeah.
With Yuri,
perfect. Line in the sand.
Yeah. Kaglar Soyanchu, guys. I'll let you take this one, Chris. You start off with Kags, a player that we sang a song about his penis.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we tried not to sing that.
I'll give it 2. I'll give it. Firstly, I mean, one could argue if it wasn't for the Soyuncu signing, then we wouldn't have got 80 million for Maguire. So, firstly, I'll say that was ingenious by the club. Second one, to me, completely left field, but my God, as a kid that grew up in Leicester, that photo of him and Under on Gallery Gate on that night out where they were genuinely loving life was just so much of the feels to me. Like, I'd done that as a kid growing up from the age of 18 to 21. I'd walked that street. I'd gone to those bars. I'd visited those kebab restaurants. I'd done everything. And just seeing the look on those lads' faces on that whenever they posted that picture, brilliant. Like, I love that. That was he had such a smile, the best hair, like up there and Leicester hair of all time. I'm not.
Yeah, dude. Happiest Turks in Leicester since Muzzy.
Yeah, genuinely, he seemed like the sort of lad that you'd love to kind of. I don't know about you guys, but I would love to have gone for a pint with him. I think he would have been the sort of lad that you would have enjoyed getting to know. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll look back on him as well as such a wasted opportunity. You look at the past 5 games; he was the best player on the pitch. We were listening to Brendan 6 months ago telling us that he wasn't even good enough to participate in first team training, and ended up in like the reserve team. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think he's the epitome of the misery that this was this season, and I'm glad for him that he's got the move to Atletico Madrid because I think the kid deserves it. I mean, ultimately, I think when he had that spot in the middle of his career here where it wasn't the first season he looked great. He then kind of dropped a little bit, but whether that was just looking back, whether that was related to Brendan being in charge, who knows? Like, it doesn't seem to me like this relationship between Cags and Brendan was something that kind of catalyzed this season. It most likely was something that may have been going on throughout the years that they were together. So, I think this is the one that hurts the most, because I could definitely see him being the sort of guy that I think could have been great in the championship with Sutter, could have been the linchpin, could have been a future captain for us, could have been someone that could have stuck around for his career at Leicester.
It'll be interesting to see what he does there. But shout out to Atletico, because I mean, they literally just saw a guy pouting essentially on the bench and just said, "Fuck no, we're not going to pay a transfer fee for him." This is so easy. Like you almost just it's almost disgusting, Jimmy, when you start to think about the talent and just how it went south. And if you could get a reality show style, I would love to have been a fly on the wall to see what the fuck went on between those two.
Yeah, where's the Amazon series of watching Brendan Rodgers master people manager? I would have loved to see that. That would be a training video on how not to inspire your workers and how to not treat them. Like, I can't mention Soyuncu without mentioning Benkovic. Sorry, they come as a package deal. And who would have thought that Soyuncu was the better one out of the two when we look back and into the future? And Chris, you said like his first season was good. I think you're discounting his really first season when he was actually woeful. And we thought, who is this guy? Did we just get him? Like we said, we got two players for Harry Maguire for 50% of the sales price, and he was the one that was like, who is this guy? What have we done? But then he
was better than Benkovic.
Benkovic didn't even play. I think that he's the new, I can't remember the name of the guy who was that we had on our books that like never played back in the championship days. Dernich or whatever, the kind of Eastern European one. He was Leon Churchnich. That's the one. It's like, was he a myth? Is he a money laundering scam? But I think, look, I think this is a bit of the Yuri in reverse, isn't it? He like actually wanted to play and he wasn't allowed to, and yeah, he was soft, but he didn't pack up his bag. And I think that if anything gets him some credit. The fact that he kind of transformed from, Keystone Cop to Franco Baresi in a season was kind of pretty immense as well. And, good luck to the lad. It's going to be one of those where you keep an eye on what's going on in La Liga and how he's getting on and how many starts is he getting and so forth, certainly for the next season. And then we'll probably move on. But yeah, like you said, Chris, seems like a great lad.
It's weird.
It's weird. Get in a headlock with him.
It's weird because like some of these guys, like I'm gonna be like rooting against them actively for the rest of their careers, and then some of the guys like Cags, I'm genuinely like wishing good things upon. James, I'm glad you said that. Jason, your favorite Cag or your thoughts on Cags?
Yeah, I'll try to make it brief because I think you guys covered a lot. But yeah. I think, Jim, you're right. Like when he first came to the club, he did not look good at all. Like his footwork was way off. And you're like, wait a second, this guy was in the Bundesliga team of the season. That we can get into another later episode. My brother Jordan's theory about the Bundesliga All-Stars. But he didn't look good, but he clearly put in the work during that summer. And then look what he became, a PFA defender, PFA team of the year, right? And so guy was a hell of a player, but clearly, sometimes he would lose it. And we saw that against Bournemouth away. And we kind of threw away top four. But I don't know. I always wondered if he just didn't respect the way that Brendan Rodgers was. They have very different kind of attitudes. Rodgers wanted to kind of always football his way and kind of always outsmart everyone else. And sometimes you have to fight your way through to get where you need to go. And so I don't choose that kind of character. We're missing that from the squad. So I think like if we had a bit more of that this season, maybe we wouldn't have been in the position we were in. And every time he was called upon, he looked very good this year. And that was really difficult to do.
So true.
When you're not really playing. But as for like a moment, aside from him graciously and maybe not realizing what was going on, getting a photo with the New York Foxes flag scarf outside the stadium. I think that FA Cup game against United was I guess a good game that kind of sums up Soyuncu at his worst and his best, and he got skinned by freaking Mason Greenwood, right? And we gave up a goal and then busted his ass the rest of the game and powered in that header to get us a huge win en route to an FA Cup title. So I think kind of when I think about Cags, I think about that game more than him punching and kicking a Bournemouth player in our goal.
Yeah.
What about his Cruyff turn? That was also a legendary one when he put, can't remember who it was on their bum as well.
I'm just laughing. I thank you for that visual memory of him in that photo with the New York Foxes scarf. That's an all-time look on someone's face. I can literally see it in my brain. So, for me, Kanks, for me, this is a unique one as an American fan. For any American fan that's dealt with anything regarding Christian Pulisic and the hype around that guy, my favorite Cags memory, I think personally, is when Pulisic made his Premier League debut. He started against Leicester, and I just thought, oh, fucking hell, if he's going to score and his first Premier League goal is going to be against Casper and it's going to be on loop and I'm going to have to see it 7,000 times on ESPN this week and it's going to be terrible. And instead what happened is a Cags masterclass, and he picked up that little Pennsylvania nugget and shoved him in his pocket, and we never saw him the rest of the night. It was absolutely beautiful. He would take him into the corner and steal the ball and just leave Pulisic in the dust. So I have to thank him personally for that. That's a big one for me. Thank you, sir, for your service to Leicester. Moving on, guys. This one for me is this one's tougher for me than the previous two, and that's Dan Amartey. A player that's kind of a player that you might have forgotten was playing for us prior to this season. It's a guy that's been here a very, very long time. Obviously, coming over from Copenhagen seems like 15 years ago at this point. A club servant, if there ever was one, a guy that was forced into terrible fucking situations because of Brendan's fight with Soyuncu, essentially, and forced into a position where he's playing at an age where he really should have honestly been not in that position where he was. Why was he still on the books? There's all sorts of questions to be asked. We'll start with you, Jason. When I say Dan Amartey, what are your thoughts? And you're going to miss him.
I will miss Big Dan. He kind of had that cult hero status for me for a few different reasons. I think he was, in a lot of ways, like unintentionally hilarious, and he kind of always had that one piece of hair that just didn't go with the rest of his hair all the time, and I always wondered what that was about, and also wondered why no one ever came up with a Twitter account just for that piece of his hair. But Dan was tough. I think you said it. Like, he was playing in roles and positions that he probably shouldn't have been in, but he tried, and I think I'll appreciate that out of Dan. I also feel like I have a kind of personal responsibility for like what happened with Amartey's career. So a lot of folks may not realize, but we signed him during the title winning season, during that January window. And if anyone has a chance, go on YouTube and look at this video of a play that he made for Copenhagen, like the 96th minute. He's got the facial injury. He's wearing a mask. He runs all the way down the pitch to make a tackle, then turns around, busts his ass, goes all the way back up the pitch, wins a penalty, and celebrates winning the penalty, and Copenhagen win the game. And I was like, wow, like we got ourselves an engine here. And he just never was that. He was just always injured. The guy was always injured. And so I was over the year we won the league for 2 games, Liverpool home and Man City away, both in the beginning of February. And Big Dan had just joined the squad, and I saw him at the King Power before the Liverpool game. And I don't know how much English he spoke at the time, so maybe he didn't even hear this and didn't mean anything to him. But I, said hi to him and told him that, wished him luck. And I told him that, he came to the right place. It's going to be great for his career. Little did I know he'd spend the next 5 years injured. So I do feel like I personally jinxed Big Dan Amartey, and I do want to apologize to him and actually to all Leicester fans, everywhere, because, we had to see Big Dan start a lot of games this season after all those horrific injuries.
Yeah, he just seemed just old out there, and that's the worst thing that I think you can say to a professional footballer. He just was outpaced out there. Jimmy, your thoughts on our favorite Ghanaian player?
I think never has a YouTube video kind of have I been so excited. And as Jason said, 2015, 16, signing him over that January window and watching all his videos of his box-to-box dynamo, like smashing long ranges and just sort of, oh my goodness, who is this that we're going to pair with N'Golo Kante and just run midfield to the ground? And then little we know he'll become, this sort of timid, puny right back that can't really pass the ball more than 5 yards and barely runs. Like you said, he got a lot of injuries. I think he was unlucky early in that signing. I think it's also, I feel like a bit of he seemed like a very shy sort of introverted guy, apart from the Strand. Maybe that was his cry for help. But our friend Paul's favorite thing in the world, wasn't it? A Marty Strand watch during games. But look, a great servant, did everything that was asked of him, played in every position that we can kind of think of, did his best. I think what we always remember thinking about, Dan Amartey coming back from AFCON, he ran the back line for Ghana. He's an amazing centre back. He's going to do it. And then not happening. And I think it's just Daniel Amartey is the epitome of potential and how much a player can be much better when he's not playing than when he is playing. But I think he's just a kind of cult legend, and I'll probably not forget him. And to see where he's going is kind of insane. So,
well, speaking of that, and he is linked to AC Milan. He did have that stretch before the World Cup this season where him and Faust did look like prime Maldini and Baresi. I mean, we were actually getting clean sheets. So, but,
exactly.
I want to put that out for the record.
I don't know about you boys, but to me, Danny Amartey is probably the first Leicester player who we signed knowing what position he played, and now he leaves the club, and I have no idea what position he plays. That's kind of the way that's the way we've treated him, it seems. As you guys pointed out, we signed him as this dynamic guy that was going to support Conte in the middle of the park, and through injuries and whatever it would be, he's probably played at every position on the back line, I would guess. He may have even played every position on the field across his career at Leicester City. I mean, I hope that AC Milan move works. I think he was also was it Galatasaray as well that are interested?
Galatasaray also
in the Turkish league. So good luck to the guy. I mean, to me, it's sad as well. You think of there's that video on the image on social media where the Premier League winners, and every year we lose another one that gets kind of grayed out. This season again, we lose Amartey from that image, and that it's just another step away from that moment, which is sad. But echo you boys. I mean, a guy that we never really found, whether it is through injury or opportunities, a place to kind of give him that run.
Moving on, Mindy, Napolis, our little boy. He's taking off. Love that man. did some things that would make you just be like, "Holy shit, who was that? That plays for Leicester?" And then the next minute later, you'd want to curse his name. Who wants to start with this one? Jim, do you want to talk about Mendy?
Wait, I know I said Amati never other player being overhyped when they're not playing. I think Nampalys Mendy is is the archetype. Look up overhyped from absence in the dictionary, and you see, or the Leicester dictionary, and you see Nampalys Mendy. Look, I think again, clearly he's a short central midfielder, and look who he was signed to replace. And I think that's like that set him off on it. That's a foot. You know, look at the highlights of when he was at Nice, and he was kind of dynamic, playing some of these long passes and kind of cross-field balls and so forth, and a real engine. But I think it was a bit tough one because did Wilf come in sort of similar time as well, and they were
similar
kind of
timing.
Yes,
they were competing for that spot. You know, we kind of thought. So I think he never really bedded in. Probably had one of the worst performances I've seen in a long time in recent history, with his performance against Millwall, where we got knocked out in the cup, and you know that was probably one of our worst performances ever under Ranieri, wasn't it, that season? And like couldn't even play a pass more than 5 yards. I think he didn't even reach a player that was 5 yards away, and we thought, who is this guy? But again, kind of turned up, had a good game. If you know, didn't do anything stupid. If you wanted a 5 yard sideways pass, then he was your man. Scuttling around, and I think he's going to be see you later, but probably won't really think about you when you're gone.
Yeah, neutral player for me that I'm not going to wish against or anything.
He's one of those that Matt, you think about on FIFA. Okay, I'll probably just sell him, and some random club will come in for £2 million, and I'll take the £2 million and I'll buy, you know, Alex Scott from Bristol City to replace.
Perfect. Yeah, my thing I'll always remember about Mendy is the fact that the dude literally was off the team, didn't make the squad, and then impressed.
Won the African Cup of Nations.
And then gets the AFCON, and then somehow impresses Brendan enough. Remember that to get back in the squad for Brendan and start games again, Jason.
I love the idea that when he comes back from, if the story ever came out, he came back from AFCON. He just had his medal around his neck as he walked back into Seagrave. And Brendan was like, "Oh, what's that?" And he's like, "I just won." And he's like, "Oh, okay, get in the squad." Like, yeah, that would be.
Pappy Mendy as an AFCON winner. I don't know why. I just think it is hilarious.
It's awesome.
He, from most of his time at Leicester, I think was the most, it was one of the most unremarkable tenures I think I'd ever seen. I think he was pretty decent for a good chunk of this season, was actually one of our better players, but I don't think he had made a forward pass for Leicester City Football Club until this season. And you know, he was a player for me that would hide often and just try to make the most conservative play as often as possible. And also just kind of just would like give me anxiety every time we defended a corner, because it always seemed like somehow Rodgers decided that Pappy Mendy belonged in the box defending corners, and then he would go up against like a Lewis Dunk or some guy that's 3 times his size. So those are just things that I don't get. But, you know, we talked about the great foresight and signing Soyuncu before we got rid of Maguire. So we kind of had the successor kind of in the wings, and that's Leicester City recruitment at its best. But Pappy Mendy is a throwback to one of our more interesting recruitment strategies, which is when we just tried to sign lookalikes to our good players that were leaving. So we did the same thing, like in short succession, where we lost N'Golo Kante. And it's like, oh, well, here's another, you know, short Frenchman of African, you know, heritage, you know, I don't know, Africa, it's a country somewhere. And he's, you know, the fans won't notice.
No, not at all.
And he could have been any different than N'Golo Kante at the end of the day. And it was like the same thing that we did when we had Mahrez left. I'm like, well, you know, maybe They won't
Here's an
notice.
Algerian.
Rashid Ghazal kind of looks like him. He's French, Algerian, also, and they'll never know. He looks like him.
He sounds fast.
It was the
It's gonna be
Leach
fun.
Happy recruitment. It was the Jamie Vardy lookalike that postman with the cast. We were just looked for a full kit wanker who kind of looked a bit like our star players. Like, get him in. He can't be anywhere. I also do. I don't know why I've always liked Pappy's nickname. I don't know why I just like saying Pappy Mendy. This is fun to say. It's fun to say. I don't know why.
Well,
and then the KRS One chant that never quite took off.
Well, I was about to give you credit. I don't even
Yeah.
want you to have to say it because it's one of my favorite chants, and it's fully Jason Becker and the New York Foxes.
I don't know. I don't know if I was the one who came. I think someone from Leicester actually came up with that.
Really?
Like on Fox's Talk. And then we kind of like, oh man, this is perfect. And we would get a few airings at Football Factory for sure.
Whoop, whoop. All right. Yeah. So anybody else want to say anything on Mr. Mendy? Take care, Muggsy Bogues of Leicester.
Most surprising goal ever that he scored as well.
Yes.
One goal he ever scored.
Yes.
Was like what the hell? Was that Yuri Tillemans? Wait a minute, who was that?
That's a great shout. Jimmy. I'm glad that you remembered that.
I think it might have been his only shot.
in his career, probably.
But the man's an AFCON winner, so we got to put some respect on his name.
For sure. Next guy that we'll sum up. Jason, you kind of spoke on him earlier, Mr. Ayoze Perez. Yeah. Whoa, you want to talk about somebody that could make you pull your hair out and can divide Leicester fans on their opinion. I'll just say it real quick. Best memory I have of Ayoze is the hat trick in the 9-0. And quite frankly, beyond that, I can't really remember anything of noteworthy that he ever did for us ever. Jim, your thoughts on Ayoze?
He assisted the goal that we scored to win the FA Cup.
Very fair, yes. Good. The non-handball, that's good. Chris?
He had the greatest social media game I've ever seen as a Leicester. Even his goodbye video. I mean, that came out today. That was great. I mean, to your point, it was just legitimately the FA Cup, the 9-0, and his moment in Copenhagen on repeat with like a Leicester badge thrown in there. That was it. But he had the best social media game. Like every weekend, it wouldn't just be a picture, it'd be a video, it'd be him looking
normally of him in a hot tub on slow motion.
Yes, remember.
Sorry, if Yuri Tillemans' goodbye video was made by Apple, his iPhone moments, then Ayoze Perez was made by, I don't know, Jerry Bruckheimer or something.
Two players in Leicester City to ever have their initials stylized into a logo. One, Kasper Schmeichel. That's cool. You're Kasper Schmeichel. You're a fucking legend. The second, Ayoze Perez.
Don't know. None of you guys need to answer this, but I want to just throw it out there in the universe. How many more points would we have gotten if we kept Ayoze Perez on the side and did not sign Tete?
A
lot
more than we ended up with is my.
Might have got an extra point or two out of it, I think.
Yeah.
Same can be said for Albrighton. If we're being, I think
Ayoze more than.
We'll get into Tete in exactly one player.
Well, we wouldn't have got 3 points against Villa if we didn't have Tete.
Perhaps.
Ooh, good.
But then we wouldn't have got any. We didn't get.
That's the next player on my list is Tete, and he has one moment. You just said it, Jim. So yes, Tete,
sorry,
the first Brazilian in Leicester City history. He scored in his debut, and we will never see him again. I think that pretty much sums up his time.
No, I got another Tete one.
Okay.
I have a favorite Tete moment and a Tete.
He was the only guy that looked good in that shit show of a shirt last year. Like that,
physically looking.
That shirt was disgusting last year. Let's be honest. The collar was floppy. It was just a disgusting color of blue. It didn't work. But seeing the TETE with the little, I don't know what the kind of omelette, or I don't quite know
The
what
circumflex.
the circumflex. Thank you. Above the E. I remember emailing the club shop saying, "Have you got this in yet?" And they're like, "Oh, we're on delay until we get them sent from the Premier League to get them
Typical
actually
Leicester.
put on the kit." I mean, he
3
was the only
weeks.
guy that looked good in that shirt last year. Monstrosity of a shirt, monstrosity of a
Yeah,
season.
Chris,
That was my
Chris,
that's my
he
Tate highlight.
didn't run fast enough for his shirt to get the collar go floppy. That's why.
That's why.
I can tell you, Chris, it was a 3-week delay, and it was just long enough because, if you remember on the podcast, I said if he scored in his debut, I would order his shirt. And what was ironic about it is if you ordered the shirt after that game, there was a 3-week delay, and that was just enough time to realize that you'd wasted your fucking money on that jersey,
I
Jason.
made a terrible mistake.
Oh, yeah. Tete, I mean, all we want, there are two things that, I always think about, like the two things I always wanted as a Leicester City fan was to win the FA Cup, and two, to finally sign a Brazilian. I mean, look at all the Brazilians like Burrow have had out, and like clubs like that. And we still had never had a Brazilian. We finally got one. And it wasn't a Brazilian that just had like a regular guy's name. Like he was a one named Brazilian too, which is like makes it even better. And then he comes in and with all the hype, and he looks so good as, against Villa, and he was just he was stuck.
Jason,
And my favorite Tete moment though was before the signing was even official. We played Walsall in the cup, Walsall away at the cup, and there was a guy in the away end who clearly like just went on his like work computer and printed a paper Brazilian flag and brought it to the game, and we scored. And there's a great photo of like our team like celebrating with the fans, and some guys just holding up
an 8x10,
some 8x10 like Brazilian flag on just a regular piece of printer paper,
crumpled paper.
I thought was hilarious. My theory though about why Tete was as bad as it was he was doing all the right things early, and he kept posting those like really endearing videos, and he was like going into his classroom and doing his English classes. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, like that's the kind of guy like we like. That's adorable. I mean, he really cares. He's only here for a loan, but maybe he'll want to stay. He's really trying to learn the language. And so that's what he's posting on Instagram for his English videos. But if you look at what other Premier League players who are taking English classes are posting on their social media accounts, there's this like model lady who is like giving classes, like giving private one-on-one classes, and she's always doing like cute like TikToks with her players and dressed in like, like revealing outfits and doing her like little games with each of the players. And Tete's posting these videos and Instagram stories of him and just like in a drab classroom. Looks like he's in 13 years old in detention or in study hall.
Yeah, dude.
Mandatory study hall. And he probably looked around and said, oh, this is what I get compared to those guys. I can't do this. This is miserable. And then he stopped.
Let's not forget his first.
And he stopped posting those English those English lessons too.
It was like he was on that whiteboard that doesn't quite erase the previous lesson and stuff like that. But his first two games were also like that false dawn, weren't they, for us? Where we beat Villa, he was like a legend, and then we beat Spurs the following week, and then we just went to dog shit completely after that. And that was the kind of, oh, well, I think that was the start of, oh, we'll be all right, we'll turn it around. And then we never did.
Yeah.
No, we did not. All right, guys, we've saved him for last because I know that this player means the most to the four of us on this podcast personally. Ryan Bertrand will unfortunately be leaving us after one of the most successful spells that a player could have at a club. Chris, when we talk about the Chelsea legend that came over and made his impression on this club, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you? when you think of Mr. Bertrand? That
I think
that
Chris
could
was
not
actually
be good.
frozen, even though
Chris
that would
was
be a perfect
frozen.
reply.
No, I'm
And
gonna.
that's
I was
perfect.
thinking.
We're just in
So,
silence. That's even better.
okay, so Matt, Jason, I owe you an apology. So, as a 15-year-old kid playing Football Manager, playing FIFA, I used to look at this American model of, oh, you have a coach and you have a general manager. And the idea is that the general manager, he's in charge of the squad. He's in charge of picking the players. He's in charge of the draft. And the coach, his job is to take those players and he's supposed to make the best of them for that season. And then we reevaluate again. 2022, 2023 has made me realize as a Leicester City fan that we should never, ever, 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 unless we're, and we'll talk about it later, getting a manager that we feel can do it, give the responsibility of our manager anything in terms of transfers. Because ultimately, if we do that, we end up with Ryan Bertrand. So on behalf of myself, I apologize to you guys because I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that the general manager concept worked, but you can always come back to me now and say, Ryan Bertrand, and I'll be like, sir, you win, because that's how bad it was.
This is mine, and then we'll move on from this. But at the time, Chris, this was when we signed Mr. Bertrand. At the time, it was just you and I doing the podcast, and I remember the first photos coming out when he was holding the jersey and being like, And I think I even said on the pod at the time, I was like, dude looks a little fluffy. A little fluffy. And then the first preseason photos came out, and that is the first time that we dropped the muffin top moniker on him. A player that just Jim, take it away, man.
So I do have a genuine favorite Ryan Bertrand moment for Leicester when he got sent off when we won 9-0.
Yes.
And to think, watching that guy, what has ever made him the target? Look, on paper, it was kind of, we'd lost Chilwell. We needed a left back. We had Luke Thomas and we had nothing. And we thought, let's have someone who's a bit more. I don't know, had Chilwell gone then, or was he on his way?
We had lost Fuchs.
Yes, we had.
And we were looking to replace.
We needed a senior pro who could kind of bring on Luke Thomas.
Yes.
Who could, and so on paper, he was he said the right things, didn't he, when he got signed? And I just think it's like, sorry to, but maybe he just never got over COVID, and it seemed to just crush him, and then he was gone. The preseason, he actually didn't look like he was the worst player in the world. Matt, I know he looked out of shape, and I totally agree.
Well, but now you're making me feel like shit because
no. I'm just trying to, me. I'm just trying to be.
Yeah, for sure. You're for sure.
But there was hope, and then the hope was dashed, and then he became a leech on our road to debt. And I think that's what he'll be remembered for. Like that he, he's not going to quit, right? But he didn't contribute to anything. He didn't get any minutes. He didn't, if you look up on things like FB Ref now for stats for this season, John Warmlington shows up as a youth team right back as part of the squad, even though he had 0 minutes, because I think he had a game on the bench. Ryan Bertrand doesn't even show up in the list of players for 2022, 2023. So that's about as much as I think I can say about him. Sorry, Matt, I didn't mean to feel bad.
No, you're fine. I just, I don't, maybe it's better if Jason takes it, because it was a signing that from day one for me, I was just, there were better options in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought okay, this might make sense. It makes sense. I talked to other people and other fans about him, but wow, I guess only Leicester City would go bag 9 goals past the team and then sign 2 of the defenders responsible for that. So, I have a favorite Ryan Bertrand moment. I guess my favorite Ryan Bertrand moment would be that, anytime I've ever been in Leicester and out to eat, he's never walked by and taken food off my plate. And I guess
I'll take that. Okay. Chris, anything else you wanted to say about him? And all right, cool. Well, there you have it. Our Ryan Bertrand season 22-23 Magic skills, assists, and goals highlight. Yeah, just a nothing player that you won't remember. And when you're trying to, 10 years
it'd
from
be a
now,
good trivia question years from now about like a player that was signed and didn't play.
Yeah. It'll be like Ryan Bertrand or Sean St. Ledger.
Jason, I do have to say
legend
about your
comment.
Your comment about like only Leicester City would sign 2 players that contributed to a 9-0 win for us. Ryan Bertrand was only when he got sent off, it was 1-0 to Leicester.
Yeah, but he got a red card that game.
I know, but you know what? I'm
terrible red card.
Kidding.
Which led to it.
Maybe that was Brendan's like. So, if he'd have stayed on, we'd have only won 2-0. So that's how great a defender he is. Only Brendan could do that. Are we going to say goodbye to Brendan, Matt, or you don't even want to mention that guy?
I think we already.
Yeah,
I think we covered that. Yeah, with the goodbye podcast. Let's talk about players that are back, guys. We've got some players returning that might excite you, depending on where you're looking. Hamza Chowdhury signed an extension. He will be back next year. Victor Christensen has already, stated how excited he is to play in the championship next season. He seems like a player. Watching him this year, just seemed like a guy that needs a little refinery in his game, but the kind of guy that has a high energy and the kind of engine that you need in the championship. So when we talk about that, guys, anything there excites you about Hamza coming back? Jason, when seeing Christensen talk about how stoked he is to go up, and then also the rumors of Johnny Evans, which we can dive into that.
I don't know. I always kind of liked Hamza, and so it'd be nice to see someone actually like give a crap out there and like not be a pushover and not be so nice and actually like go after an opposition player. And I think
that's where I am too.
All I have to say about that.
For sure. If they sell KD, I mean, the rumor of Luton Town wanting to spend big to buy KDH, if KDH goes, I can see a world where Hamza Chowdhury is a captain on this squad in the championship.
I don't think we're signing KDH. I think he'll become. I think he's the linchpin. I know you might give me that look. I don't think we're signing KDH. I'm just laughing at the fact that we joked all season. It's so ironic. In the Premier League, we were bemoaning the fact we didn't have a left back, and now we go into a championship season with 2 players that we consider to be championship left backs. Luke Thomas, that we said all year was someone that needs to go on loan to a championship side to get his legs, and now we got Christensen that's going to join us and play left back. So we have an epitome. We have more than 2 players at left back, I suppose.
Man,
can I just spend 2 minutes? The Evans stuff annoys me.
Please. Yeah.
So he comes out after the game. And
what the fuck was that?
Okay,
guys?
they're saying goodbyes in there, and then a week later we're coming out and we're saying that we're discussing a new contract. Like, I want to get your boys' opinion on this. Like, what are we expecting from him next year? Like, is it purely a club ambassador role? I mean, this year we wanted him to play. He played 1 game, got plantar fasciitis, was out for 6 months, then got an injury. Then came back, looked like he pulled his hamstring in the first 15 minutes of the game that he came back. Like, what are we expecting next year from a player like that? Like, to me, he isn't like, I understand when we go down at times, you're looking for those older, mature players to give that sense of calm and stability and experience in the championship. But I'd argue that we've got Harry Sutter in the squad, a guy that's been there and done it in the championship. Like, why
Jamie
not
Vardy.
use him? Whoever. I just don't know what Evans is going to bring next year to the table that is going to allow us to be better or whether
with
he's
you,
just going to
dude.
be a waste
I'm
of
with
squad
you.
space.
And I know, Jason, you were going to say who knows if Vards will still be there, but I'm with you, Chris. I sent it in our little private message that we have. The dude, he can't survive in the Premier League, at his age, just getting beat the hell up, let alone going into the championship. Add 4 teams, add a bunch of 20-year-olds trying to make a name for themselves. I don't see any way that he survives in the championship, Jason. Like,
Yeah,
it
and
makes no
you're
sense.
playing more games in that division in a condensed schedule. When Evans did come back at the end of the season, he actually did look good, which was really surprising considering how far he's been out. There's no doubt that the man is a very, very good defender, and he knows how to organize the back line. He's good at his job as a defender. Now, he's been a captain of now 2 sides that have gotten relegated. And for me, I'm less concerned about his injury record and more concerned with the fact that he had no idea how and why this team could have possibly been relegated. He had absolutely no answers, did not have any thoughts about that, just was completely baffled, didn't know what to say, didn't know what to do. And I'm sorry, you just cannot have that kind of like character around the squad who's supposed to be a leader.
Yeah, I'm with you there. In no world does it make sense to me that he would think about. When I saw the thing that they're in discussions with Johnny Evans, like there are 10 players I would have said that they're in discussions with signing a new contract with before I would have thought that the Scarecrow was one of those players talking about coming back next year, Jim.
Yeah. I don't know about like him coming back. And like, I don't even know what the team's going to look like, to be honest. I'm a bit like lost for words. For once, which I'm pretty grateful on, but like it just seems a mess. Like, I think this is the biggest concern about, what are we going to like? I'm hoping we'll get some clarity on the manager next week. Like, again, back to this club having no plan. We fire Brendan. We have no idea who's coming in. We have, Statler and Waldorf managing us for 2 games. And then we have then we have Dean Smith and crew coming in and, a little upturn. But now we don't have a plan again. Like, we don't know, like, are we waiting for, Maresca to come in because he's going to win the Champions League with Man City and then we can talk to him? Haha, right? But we need to get something going because we need to have, like, Chris, as you said, this sort of, we don't even seem to have a plan on like, the general manager is going to go and buy the players who, because we don't have a freaking clue what the identity of the team's going to be. We don't know the play style. We don't know anything. This is not like where Brentford get rid of Dean Smith and bring in Thomas Frank, but they have a system and they play this. This is not like Red Bull where they bring in same manager, we have a system. This is not like Brighton, for Christ's sake. This is like, we have no freaking clue. There's talk about, us getting just completely decimated from a, squad, perspective, our players getting picked off because of how much money we lost are in the hole. And we're losing too many players that had asset value for nothing. So we basically know Maddison's not going to cover, Maddison's gone. He's not going to cover the rebuild.
Right.
We might not even get market value for Maddison now because we're down and they know how desperate we are. So that probably means Harvey Barnes is going. And I think, like, back to Evans, unless he's going to take a massive pay cut, I'm sorry, but thanks, Johnny, but no thanks anymore. We can get someone who's going to turn up for 5 games, have some experience, and probably be on 10 grand a week or 20 grand a week, not 60, 70, 80 grand a week. So unless he's got like some sort of feeling in his heart that, I owe the club and I'll do another year, but not likely. because this is probably his last season he can make any real money. Like, that to me is like, we talked about the excitement of like, oh, what if, there's, read Fox's talk, read all the rumors about all these great players, these not great players, but players that could be exciting, that have got some dynamism. Hamer, are we going to go steal people from Coventry? There's another Brazilian for you, even though he's kind of not really a true, he's Brazilian born. Don't buy a shirt, Matt. But like, Chair from QPR, another promising box-to-box midfielder. We had some of these we were linked with in the Premier League, like Lafay, some of these, not like those guys, but like those sort of dynamic box-to-box. So we know we need pace, we know we need speed, we know we need energy in the middle to cover from the lack of organization. And I don't know, is Wilf going to go for what? Wilf probably go to Napoli to talk, 12 million, 15 million quid, right? And we'll be grateful to get some money and get him off the wage books too. I feel like that's the thing, but we can't do any rebuild until we know who's coming in, and we need Top and Rudkin to, your horse is running in the derby, well done, but can you sort of help out this club that's in the shit right now?
I naively thought that we'd be able to get into Rudkin on this episode, and we're already at an hour 20, so we'll do that.
We need the Rudkin magic skills in the system.
We have a huge task on our hands, and it can already condensed off season because the championships starts sooner. And I don't know, some genius or geniuses at the club decided that we should still go ahead with this trip to Asia before. So it's going to make it even more difficult if we have to make any late signings. And so we're going to be in Thailand and Singapore, a week before the season starts.
Right. A week before we have to play fucking Plymouth Argyle, who, have been just training in the mud and the mire. And we're coming back from a Singapore trip. It's laughable, Chris. You're muted, buddy. Sorry. There you go.
There you go. Sorry about. I just googled. So we're 3 weeks away from preseason training starting. If you go on last year, so last year preseason training started on the 28th of June last year. If you go off the LCFC website, so we've got 3 weeks until that starts. We've got 1 week until the window opens, and we need a manager and we need a squad. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a hell of a 3 weeks. Like, hold on tight, boys and girls, because this is going to fly. But one name I was interested in getting your guys' opinion on, JJ. Like, do you think that Justin is someone that we're going to lose this window, or do you think, given the injury, we may get him for at least the first half of the championship? Because, I mean, that quality fullback. Yes, we've got Ricardo, but somebody that's flexible, maybe can play inside as well. But I just one of those names that's going under the radar at the moment. I just wonder what you guys thought about that.
He's the one player. He's one player that I have some hope that we'll be able to keep.
Yes, agree.
That'd be cool. I love his work rate. I love everything about JJ's heart. I think he's a player that could do very special things. He's not only a defensive monster, he's a box-to-box guy, and the motherfucker can score goals. Like, we've seen it. He's scored some great goals. So I think he's just the kind of player that we could use.
We just need to see if he's going to be healthy. If it would be the same. If we'll be able to run it, because
where that ACL is, Cool, guys. Well, I think there's one more big topic that we got to discuss, and that's the sell of James Maddison and your thoughts on him as a player, his legacy, quote unquote, as a player, if he has one. I want to go around the room and get your thoughts on him now that it's very clear that he's heading out, and just your thoughts on our quote unquote number 10 for the last few years. Let's start with you, Chris. Do you want to take it?
1 year too late. I think we should have sold him last summer. Unfortunately, it's going to be. It's the. I mean, we talked about this on the podcast, but I think we're too late to the party with him. Quality player, destined. I think it's been great to see his growth. Excited for him in his future. I think, infamy-wise, I mean, that post a few months ago might go down in history as probably the craziest of Leicester City players' posts on social media.
Shout out Rob Tanner. Shout out Rob fucking Tanner.
But I think one of those players that will rue not letting go a year ago, I think.
Well, speaking of crazy, social media post. I did want to just make my background one of my favorite moments in the last stint in the championship was Paul Gallagher's our favorite Preston North End player for Leicester City. His Twitter debut is right behind me, and what an entrance that was! Just going on Twitter saying he's ready for the banter, and then he's off to go smash his wife's back doors.
We've had 2 Preston North End references today with Sean St. Ledger as well today. So that's good stuff. Jimmy, your thoughts on the clear backpack? What could have been, what ended up being a player that, in my opinion, his ego got in the way of his game?
I agree with Chris. I think we should have tried to look. I think he was. Look, hindsight, we should have tried to sell him, but I think reality, we probably should have sold Yuri hard. We should have got rid of Yuri harder last season. You know, I think he signed the contract in a way to sort of say, yeah, sell me and he'll get some money. And then we didn't sell him. I think Madison, yeah, he was on his up, but I think he was still going up. And I think he was sort of the guy we were going to build the team around. And coming into the start of the season, yeah, we had a shit show of a summer, right? We lost Fofana before the window closed, and that screwed us. I think there was some hope that, hey, actually, if Fofana's back, if Madison's back, we've got a team that we can build around. If Yuri wants to put it in, I think that was that. What if he's signing another year, and if we start playing well, maybe he'll stay longer, and it'll all be in the past. And then all of a sudden, the wheels fall off right in the end of the summer, and that kind of fucked us. And I think, like, to be fair, Madison tried, and he did put it in, and we talked about this during the start of the season where we were like, hey, Harvey Barnes and James Madison are going to play their asses off to get in the World Cup squad. And Harvey Barnes got injured and sort of fell off a bit. And Madison played himself into the World Cup squad, and he was our sort of one shining light. And the run that we had, he was dragging us. I think we think about the XG that we should have had. We think about, like, what was happening. Sorry, not the XG. We should have had the goals we should have had versus our XG. He was overperforming, and we were getting results because of him overperforming and scoring goals. Then he got injured during the World Cup. I think, not sure that. I think the thing is, great, really good player. I don't think, again, he's not in the Riyad Mahrez category. He's not in that, and that's not because he didn't contribute to winning a league. I think it leaves a sour taste in the mouth that the way he didn't admit that we were in trouble, that it was not a big deal. We didn't need to worry about it. But I think that's it. That's kind of my look. If he goes to, I don't know. I think he'll probably go to someone like a Newcastle or a Villa type, top. He's not going to, I don't know, Tottenham. So he'll get his sort of odd Champions League games, and I don't think he'll get much else. And I'm glad he got an England squad, and that's about it. Again, I feel like when he leaves, I'm not going to really be bothered.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. That sounds horrible to say, but
no, it doesn't at all, man.
I'm just trying to be truthful with how I mean.
I was just going to echo that, Jim. I think that's fair. I also think that maybe matters. Yes, we looked on those comments that he made earlier in the season, but ultimately he was most likely voicing the opinion of the squad as a whole, and he was the only one that came out and said it.
Yeah.
And as such, we as Leicester fans went straight to that and being like, oh, Maddis is saying it, we're going to do what it is. But in reality, that must have been the thinking of the squad and the manager the whole season. And
he was Brendan's mouthpiece.
Chris, you're absolutely right. They all believe that. They all believed what Madison said. And Rodgers believed the same thing. That a side that couldn't, get more than a point off of Southampton, that Bournemouth did double on, was good enough to stay up. And if they kept playing like they were, it'd be fine. When they were not playing well, Southampton had plenty of chances, missed a penalty that game.
Right.
Madison is one of those players, we don't get our highs without him, right? Without him, just his individual brilliance and everything that he did. But sometimes when you have to look back and you have an honest assessment of his time at the club, when there was a big game or like a high stakes game where everything was on the line, we just didn't really get anything from him in those moments. And sometimes it's because he tried to do too much.
Bingo.
Maybe he would have gotten down a lot earlier without Madison on the squad. But in those games where we needed it the most this year, he gives the ball away against Bournemouth, costs us that game, misses the penalty against Everton right then and there. I mean, that's survival right there. And
could have passed in a couple situations for tap-in goals late in the year that could have also kept us up. So for me, Matters is a player that I'll remember him for goals. You know, a game that sticks out when I think James Maddison, I think about, this is hilarious, I do this, but the gray and orange kit that we had that year with the orange stripes, we beat Chelsea and they did the Wolf Owl Matters goal. Like, I'll remember moments like that. But as far as like that, I mean, he played 20 minutes in the FA Cup. It's tough. And yeah, you're exactly right. We would have been down probably by Christmas this year without him.
But then when we had a chance to actually save the season,
didn't show up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most said phrase this season: "Pass the fucking ball, Matters."
Yeah. 100%. You're
or for fuck's sake, what are we doing? Probably
exactly right.
Phrases that summarize my.
All right, guys, we're gonna wrap this thing up. It's been an hour and a half, but we've had so much.
90 minutes of sheer hell.
Yes, literally, we've had so much to get through. But we'd be remiss if we did not acknowledge your amazing contributions on Twitter. We asked for your guys' questions and comments on the end of the season, and you did not disappoint. Shout out to, first of all, our first question from Zachary Harden, longtime friend of the podcast. I heard rumors that we will lose FBS as a sponsor because of relegation. If you guys have to pick, what sponsor should we get and who should we avoid? I don't know if that's true. Has anyone heard that about FBS?
I've heard it, but I'm not sure it's true. If I'm FBS, I might be asking for a refund or to terminate that because they pumped in a lot of money with the expectations that they would be on Premier League shirts. So, I think that's still to be determined. Yeah, as of now, they're the sponsor, but have heard some stories about pictures of the shirts with and without the sponsor.
Yes, can't confirm that. I would say FBS. I right along your thoughts, Jason. I would say FBS does not stand for fucking bullshit, and that's what this season was. And I think if I had to pick one, I would say Amazing Thailand would look good on there. If not the KP, Zach. We've had
this once.
But when we went down, remember, guys, when we were down in 2002,
sure,
we went from Walker's Crifts to LG.
Yes.
So I mean, it's
what a moment for us, though. By the way, an actual big brand. I know that was big in your life, Chris, when we had an actual big brand on our shirt. So Zach, summing it up, I have not heard that. But there are multiple good.
I'd like to see. Sorry, Walkers always. Yeah, always want to see Walkers back on. And then I know it would never be allowed because alcohol sponsors are not allowed anymore, but Everard's would probably
that'd be sick. That'd be sick. Loros would be cool too if we can't get a sponsor because no one wants to sponsor us. That'd be good.
We can't afford to subsidize Loros. Need to give us the money this time. Sorry.
So true.
Great institution, by the way.
That, or we bring back companies from the past, Alliance and Leicester and Tops Tiles.
Perfect.
Yeah.
How about DM Installations? That's one. That's one that I'm looking for. DM Installations on the front of the shirt. Shout out to the Mag family. Next question. Friend of the pod. Great friend of the pod. Holy shit. Great friend of the pod. Wade. And if you guys were at the Fan Fest, you know who Wade is. Yeah. He's a legend down
Even if
south.
you weren't at the Fan Fest, you know
absolute legend.
Even if you don't, what a guy. Wade says, since we won't have the Fan Fest this year, referring to the NBC Sports Premier League Fan Fest that we won't be attending this year, where am I meeting everyone to catch games next season? I can tell you guys, this has already been in discussions. We are currently looking at places that would be a good option for us to all meet next year. Whether we do it on one of the coasts, either New York or say San Diego, or we do it in the middle of the country in Kansas. We've talked about doing that. We will have an event this year where we are going to get together to watch a game as a group. And it will be fun. We will keep you in the loop. Guys, your comments on that, Chris?
I'm amazed by the number of places in the United States that are called Leicester.
That's
like,
pretty.
I actually Googled it, and it is. There's a lot more than I thought there were. But
So,
yeah,
I think we got to give a shout out to our friend Chris Watts, who pushes Asheville, North Carolina, every time we talk about an event, and I think he would probably host it in his house. Hopefully, his poor wife Kate will be sympathetic. But actually, there is a Leicester right by Asheville, North Carolina as well. So it's got the breweries, it's got the vibe. It'll have it's San Diego light. So we could do it.
I will say it's going to happen, and I'm really excited for it. We are trying to figure out where the best location would be, but I'm really excited for it to be our event, just for Leicester fans, like just a fan-led event, and not something that we have to piggyback, on a network or the Premier League for it. It'll be, all of us, and it's going to be an awesome time.
I guarantee it, guys. We will have a fucking blast. And yeah, Jason, to echo your sentiments, some of the scheduling and shit, the way the Premier League treated this club this year, I would love nothing more than to put another dollar in their pocket at those events. So that is my opinion on that matter. Our last question comes from the Canadian Foxes. They say, how many shots should I do to forget about this season?
All of them.
All of them.
Drink all of the whiskey in the world, your man.
The Crown Royal, that Apple Crown Royal, that would be my go-to. I've had that. That stuff's pretty good. Jason, what do you think?
They should see if you could get a bottle of that skate whiskey. It was this whiskey, Canadian whiskey that came in a plastic ice hockey skate.
A skate,
that'd
really?
be a good one to use.
That's perfect. That would be great. So there's your answer, Canadian Foxes. Thank you for everyone that submitted a question or a comment, guys. And yeah, thank you for just being here all year with us. It's been this has been the 4th season that we've been doing this podcast. I do say that despite the club's performance, I will say it's the best season for the pod. The addition of Jim and Jason this year, I can't tell you guys how much you have added as far as your knowledge and your humor. Chris and I can't thank you enough. I know I speak for Chris when I say you've really taken this to the next level for us. So thank you so much, boys. It's been awesome.
Been an honor. Just happy to be here and being asked. So thank you.
I just like getting to see and talk to my friends. So
that's 100%.
Wait,
right,
this
boys.
is a podcast?
One last question from me before we go, because I think every Leicester fan's thinking this. 5 seconds. First thought comes to your head. Next time we speak, who is the Leicester City manager? Go, Jim.
Mark Robbins.
Matt.
Graham Potter.
Jason.
Dean Smith.
Dean Smith.
Chris.
For me as well.
Oh.
Chris says Dean Smith.
Not
All
necessarily.
right, guys.
Who I want, just as long as it's not Steven Gerrard, we can then work.
Yes, 100%. And I will say that I am the
Roger.
only one on the podcast drinking tonight, so my optimism level may be a little higher than the other 3 when I say Graham Potter. On that note, thank you all for joining us as always for not only this episode but another awesome season. It like I said, this is just a discussion between friends, and the fact that y'all tune in every week, the numbers just blow my mind every time I look in and I see, we have listeners in Johannesburg and places like that. So shout out to wherever you are in the world. If you're listening to the podcast right now, we love you. We couldn't do it without you. And we'll be doing it all next year. And this summer, we've talked about doing maybe every 2-3 week episodes. Anytime there's breaking news that's worthy of a discussion. I think we covered as far as a wrap up tonight. It's been perfect. We're looking at an hour and 40 minutes. So, yeah, anything big breaks, look for us on Twitter. Other than that, guys, enjoy your summer. And thank you for joining us as always on the US Foxes podcast. For Jason, Jim, and Chris, thank you for joining us this season, and we will see you next time on the U.S. Foxes podcast. Cheers, guys. Peace.